You know, when we think of a lawsuit, we usually picture a search for justice, right? A last resort when something's gone horribly wrong. But what if that's not the whole story? What if a lawsuit isn't just a plea for help, but a calculated, strategic move in a much bigger game of power? Today, we're going to look at the legal system through a whole new lens.
And to kick things off, you've got to hear this idea from Robert Greene. He basically says that in the world of power, nothing is ever really as it seems. Strategy, deception, those are the real tools of the trade. It's a pretty intense thought, and it completely changes how you might look at any kind of conflict. So that brings us to the big question, right? What does all this talk about the art of power have to do with the supposedly fair and balanced world of the law? What happens when you start analyzing a lawsuit not like a lawyer, but like a master strategist? Well, to really get it, you first have to change how you picture the whole thing. Forget the marble halls and the scales of justice for a second. Instead, I want you to imagine an arena, a structured battlefield with its own specific rules of engagement.
And this right here, this is the huge mental shift you have to make. For a strategist, filing a lawsuit isn't a defensive move, it's an offensive one. It is the first strike. It's how you grab control, set the terms of the fight, and immediately put your opponent on the defensive.
And that first strike, that opening shot, well, it has a name, the legal claim. This is your official declaration of war, and it comes with a very specific arsenal of weapons.
In this battle, your main weapon is something called a tort. Now, this isn't just any old complaint. A tort is a specific kind of wrong that the law officially recognizes and, this is the important part, gives you the green light to sue for money. It's the legal firepower for your attack. And the most common attack plan, a negligence claim, follows this super clear four-step recipe. To win, you have to prove all four of these things. First, you show the other person had a legal responsibility to you, a duty. Second, you prove they dropped the ball on that responsibility, a breach. Third, you have to connect the dots and show their failure is what actually hurt you, causation. And finally, you have to show you suffered real harm that can be compensated. It's a simple but incredibly powerful formula.
Okay, so the attack is on. What does the other side do?
Well, a true strategist doesn't just deny it. They use a much smarter tactic. They raise a shield, a set of legal arguments we call affirmative defenses. Just look at the difference in power here. A simple denial, I didn't do it, can sound pretty weak, almost defensive. But an affirmative defense? Oh, that is a whole different level of strategy. You're essentially saying, you know what? Maybe I did do what you claim, but I had a perfectly legal right to do it, so you still lose. It completely flips the script. And check this out. A defender has a whole menu of these justifications to choose from. Were you protecting yourself? That's self-defense. Someone else? That's defense of others. Did the person suing you know the risks involved and go ahead anyway? That's assumption of risk. Each one is a specific tool designed to shut down the attack. But look, a true master of the game, they're never happy just playing defense. The ultimate power move is to turn the tables completely, to go from being the defender to being the attacker. It's time for the counterattack. Greene's advice on this is, well, it's brutal. He says, don't just fend off your enemy. You have to annihilate them, crush their spirit. In legal terms, this means you don't just win the case they brought against you, you launch your own offensive to make sure they can never come after you again. And wouldn't you know it, there's a legal tool designed for exactly this. It's called a counterclaim. This isn't defense anymore. This is you, the person who got sued, turning right around and suing your accuser back in the very same case. It is the legal version of total annihilation. And a counterclaim changes everything. It's an absolute game changer. All of a sudden, the person who sued you isn't just risking their lawyer's fees anymore. Now, they could end up paying you. The stakes are instantly higher for everyone, and it turns a one-way street into a two-way war. But you know, the fight isn't always just about money or who's right in the eyes of a judge. There's this whole other battlefield, and it can be way more important. The court of public opinion. We're talking about the war of reputation. As Greene puts it, your reputation is the absolute cornerstone of power. It's your most valuable asset, something you have to guard with your life.
A great reputation can scare off attacks before they even start, while a bad one is like an open invitation for trouble.
So, what's the weapon in this war of reputation? It's called defamation. And this is where things get really tricky, because the law is trying to do two things at once: protect your good name and protect everyone else's freedom to speak their mind. It's a constant balancing act. This war gets fought on two main fronts. If someone writes down a false statement that hurts your reputation, that's libel. If they say it out loud, it's slander. But here's the kicker: the ultimate defense, the silver bullet for either one, the truth. If what was said is true, it's pretty much impossible to win a defamation case. All right, let's step back for a minute. Let's look at the big picture here. After seeing law as the strategic game of power, what's the final judgment we can make on the whole system? Well, when you look at it through this lens, the whole idea of a lawsuit being this noble search for truth, it kind of melts away, doesn't it? What you're left with is a much colder reality, a contest where the winner isn't always the person who's right, but the person with the best strategy, the most money, and the strongest will to win. And that leaves us with a really tough question, one you have to ask yourself. Is our legal system truly an engine for justice, or is it just a modern-day gladiator arena where the most skilled fighter, not necessarily the most truthful one, is the one left standing? And maybe, just maybe, this final quote is the most brutally honest take of all. It suggests that law isn't about these big, fancy ideas like truth or justice. Nope, it's a service business. It's just a set of tools that people use to enforce their will and their agreements in the real world, the world of power. A pretty sobering thought to leave you with.